Hey monkeys, how you doing? Damien Keys here. Are you struggling to get people to your gigs? And if you are, I think I can help because I am watching a lot of bands do this in a really shoddy way. And I think there are definitely ways to improve a strategy to get people to your gigs. Number one, how are you telling people about your gigs? Are you just putting a Facebook status up? How often are you telling people about your gigs? How far in advance are you telling people about your gigs? Also, how many times are you reminding them about your gigs? And also, lastly, is there anything that's coming up at your gig that you want to promote? Now, I want to think of it like this. The other day, I was driving along and I was driving past some services. Now, if you know the UK, there's services all over the place where you can stop, get petrol and get some food. And the signs for the services are very, very telling. Now, if you go past one of the smaller services, when you go, sometimes I go up north or if I'm down in the southwest in Cornwall, and there's times where I'm driving along and it just says services quarter of a mile. Instantly I'm like, ooh, right, quick, services coming up. I can get some food and some petrol. And it usually says services quarter of a mile, not 24 hours. And that's it. That's your sign. I've got literally a quarter of a mile to make up my mind whether I'm going to stop, whether I'm going to get some petrol, whether I'm going to get some food. I can tell you that services is going to be utterly shit. Because that's the way it rolls. Firstly, they've gone in with a negative. We're not 24 hours. Don't come here if it's 24 hours. And it's only quarter of a mile, so you've got that much time to decide. Now, when it comes to the bigger services, you've got a big sign going right across the road which said, "You feeling tired, fella?" You're like, ooh, I'm feeling a bit tired. Why not take a break? And then there's a massive, huge sign which says 3 miles to this massive service station. And in this service station, you've got Marks and Spencer's and you've got KFC and you've got McDonald's and you've got all of this great stuff. And you're like, oh, that sounds quite tempting. And then a mile down the road, there's a smaller sign which says, don't forget, services is coming up. And it's got a few things that you might want, petrol prices, whatever it is. By the time you get to that services, you've built up the excitement. You're like, yeah, this is good. You know that is going to be an amazing service station. It's given you plenty of warning. It's given you plenty of positives. It has told you all the reasons why you need to stop at that services. Completely different. And if you look at bands, that is exactly the same thing. The amount of times that I'll get a text message going, fancy coming to a gig tonight? And I'm like, well, no, I'm not that sad. I have actually got some plans. I'm probably going to be doing something. But the amount of bands that don't go, I have got a gig coming up in 3 weeks' time. You have got 3 weeks to plan that night, and I think you should come down. It's going to be awesome. And then a week later saying, just want to remind you about the gig that we've got coming up. It's going to be so good. And there's a couple of positives that's coming up. We're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. Really excited to see you there. All of a sudden, that is going to start paying off. And I'm not seeing that. What I'm actually seeing is someone saying, got a gig tonight at so-and-so if you fancy it. If you fancy it, this is your gig, not my gig. You need to be bringing me into this world of your gigs. So you need to be thinking of it like these massive service stations. 3 miles down the road, 2 miles down the road, 1 mile down the road. Same thing for you. 3 weeks down the line, 2 weeks down the line, 1 week down the line, and on the day with all the positives, all the reasons why I will want to come to your gig. Have a think about this because it is not good enough to just put out a status or a Snapchat or a text saying, fancy coming to my gig, because you haven't given me enough time, you haven't given your audience enough time, and you haven't told them all the great reasons. You haven't made this good enough. Have a think about this because this is a great way that you can improve getting people to your gigs. It's hard slog, it's hard graft, but it's just a little bit of planning. It's not that tough. Have a think about it, and I'm feeling tired, so I'm gonna go and get some petrol. I'll see you guys tomorrow.